The headlines are screaming about the SpaceX IPO. If you're like most investors, you're caught between the Mars shot excitement and the cold reality of what's happening when a private giant hits the public markets. Today we're doing something different. I'm bringing you the exclusive vision straight from the source. The recent unedited interviews with Elon Musk and the SpaceX leadership team lay out their roadmap for orbital data centers, Starlink integration, and the future of space-based AI. You're going to hear it in their own words. But here's the Main Street reality check. A mission to Mars is not the same thing as a mission to maximize shareholders' value. In the second half of the video, I'm cutting through the hype to perform a technical audit on the IPO mechanics, the crypto flush, and some of the market moves we're seeing lately. We're going to look at the structures, the valuation pressures, and why the current market liquidity and the uniqueness of SpaceX in the middle of a crypto flush makes this one of the most volatile debuts we've seen in a decade. Oh, and I also want to announce to help people stay ahead with an affiliation with Benzingo Pro. So it's high level data stream and real-time news desk news used to track unusual market activity. The exact same kind of data that you need to distinguish between a buy and an exit trap. If you want to personalize your own research processes and see the data before it becomes a headline, you can access it through the link that I'll leave in there. One more thing. If you're ready to stop guessing and start building a portfolio that actually survives these market shifts, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on these notifications. I want this to be the outlet for Main Street. We're always putting out new material. Here goes the interview.
Hi, I'm Brett Johnson, Chief Financial Officer of SpaceX for the last 15 years. Only one the company's ever had, actually. And it's a pleasure to talk with you about SpaceX. Elon started SpaceX with the goal to change mankind and make us a multi-planetary species. And what's been very exciting is we've been able to expand that mission with our Starlink constellation, as well as with our AI solutions. At our core, we're really builders. We're the only company building the integrated hardware and software infrastructure to really power multiple businesses. But we started back in 2002 at our roots as a space business. We achieve what others think is really the impossible, and we make that possible. If you look at some of the milestones that we have accomplished already in the space business, we're the first private company to develop and launch a liquid fuel rocket and reach orbit back in 2008 with the Falcon 1. We're then the first private company to successfully dock a spacecraft for the International Space Station in 2012, the first to successfully propulsively land a rocket from space, specifically the first stage booster back in 2015, and refly an orbital class rocket booster in 2017, the first private company to launch astronauts to orbit and fly to the International Space Station in 2020. We are the first to have really a fleet of rockets that end with reusability and drive from Falcon reusability today of the first stage to full reusability with Starship. 23 metric tons of capability with Falcon 9, going to 64 metric tons of capability with Falcon Heavy, to now about to be 100 metric tons with the version 3 of Starship. And really, from a rocket reuse perspective, that has been the unlock mechanism. It's really driven down the cost of launch and given us the ability to drive up launch cadence. Specifically, having a hangar full of rockets to show our launch customers, or having the ability to ramp to, just last year alone, 165 launches of our Falcon 9, and now moving into fully reusable with Starship. Starship really has an unparalleled capability from a cost efficiency perspective. If you look at where this industry has been historically and where we were able to get to with just first stage reuse on the Falcon class, where we were able to drive out 85% of the historic cost, now we're looking at a vehicle that's intended to go drive a 10x improvement even from where we were already industry leading with Falcon. Along with the unlock from a cost perspective, Starship also gives us an unlock from a throughput perspective. So you see with Falcon 9 in the expendable category, let alone Falcon Heavy at 64 metric tons, going to 100 metric tons with version 3, and then already starting to work on version 4 in the design that should double that again to 200 metric tons to orbit. We talk about the mission and certainly how we accomplish the mission. One of the reasons that we're able to do this is we run what Elon calls the algorithm. And the algorithm starts with, first and foremost, making the requirements less dumb. Question the requirements is a key piece of our culture. We then move into deleting parts and process steps. And you see that as an example in the picture here, where you have the first version of the Raptor engine on the left going all the way to Raptor 3. And then once you delete the parts in the process step, you move into optimization, acceleration, and automation. And then pivoting to the connectivity business, again, the connectivity business is really enabled by our core launch capabilities. We have now launched and operate a high-speed, low-latency global broadband constellation, otherwise known as Starlink. And really, we feel Starlink is an unrivaled satellite constellation. The V2 satellites that we fly today on Falcon deliver 96 gigabits per second per satellite, and we fly roughly 27 satellites per launch. But the V3 satellites we're about to fly in the back half of this year are a huge step function in capability. In fact, per launch on a Falcon today with the V2 satellites to the version 3 satellites, it's a 20x improvement related to the capacity per launch with version 3. And in fact, that translates into, with 60 satellites flying per launch on Starship and each of them delivering roughly a terabit per second, that we will be able to fly 61 terabits per second of downlink capability per launch of Starship coming up here. What that quickly translates into is after 20 launches of Starship, we will be launching 1.2 petabytes of capacity per year. When you start talking about in petabytes, you start actually looking at the Starlink network as a percentage of global internet traffic. It's also important to note that because of the fact that we're delivering from space, we're able to deliver in many areas and in many cases where terrestrial just can't deliver, whether it's low density populated areas, whether it's very remote areas, whether it's in very challenging topography where you just couldn't handle it from a terrestrial perspective, or on the mobility side, in the air, on the ocean. And we've been able to demonstrate over and over again to being able to bring capabilities and services and communication to areas in a disaster zone. We have the world's largest satellite internet network, roughly over 9,600 satellites. You look at all the others combined, and they're a fraction of what our constellation is. We're actually representing 75% of all active maneuverable satellites in orbit at this point. And our user base is significantly expanding. So we ended 2024 with roughly 4.4 million users. End of last year, we had roughly doubled year over year in the number of users to roughly 8.9 million. And now, as of the end of Q1, approximately 10.3 million users on our network, over 100% year over year growth, over 164 countries/territories that represents over 3 billion people being covered by our network. And as more and more companies and industries look to resiliency and reliability as critical capabilities, you're starting to see Starlink being brought in as either the primary or at least the backup solution in a lot of the fixed side as well. Aviation specifically, I have to call out because there's a tremendous amount of traction. You see an announcement almost every week now related to another airline talking about Starlink adoption. And then also on the government side of the business, delivering Starshield capabilities, a whole separate constellation for the US government. Again, resiliency being critical here in delivering core capabilities. And then the other piece of our very diversified connectivity offering is direct to the handset. So direct to device, we started out with our Gen 1 solution, which was really a proof of concept. We flew 650 satellites, turned on a service with 30 different mobile network operators around the world, the largest being T-Mobile in the United States, have coverage now for 1.9 billion people, and have proved that there's certainly a demand and excitement about having this capability. We now are in work to fly our Gen 2. This is full 5G quality to your phone. I think this will be the transformational unlock of connecting the other 3 billion people on the planet that had really been left out from the digital divide. And then lastly, our AI business. It is really exciting to talk about where we're at from an AI perspective, because this is, again, following that same repeatable business model that I talked about, leveraging that unrivaled launch capability, we looked at following down the same path that we had done with the other businesses and really owning the full value chain all the way to the end customer. What made the most sense is for us to have our own frontier model and be able to capture all of that value. And so that's exactly what we did. We now have the world's largest coherent supercomputer with the Colossus 2 data center that we stood up with best-in-class compute GB300 specifically from NVIDIA. We have the first gigawatt scale training cluster, the first gigawatt scale megapack battery installation there as well, and first to deploy the GB200s and 300s at significant scale. And so, having a gigawatt of nameplate compute draw is really compelling for us. But certainly I want to talk about the orbital AI compute that's coming in the next couple of years, because this seems to be the future of AI infrastructure. And this is the clean energy solution. This is the solution that really addresses some of the concerns related to AI data centers popping up. The distribution capability that others may think is a constraint related to this, we've already demonstrated with our Starlink network today. And having, in essence, no operating cost, because you're leveraging the power of the sun and cooling as radiative cooling off the satellite, makes this readily available and incredibly cost efficient. And so we are ramping up this capability right now, and in essence, leveraging a ton of capability that we already have in place, whether it's the ion propulsion thrusters, whether it's the inter-satellite laser links between the satellites, or the flight computer or reaction wheels. Again, a lot of technology that otherwise would be blockers to doing this in the near term, we have in place. It's why we feel like we are the only company that can do this in any meaningful time frame. And what matters related to AI infrastructure is really creating that business model where if you start at the very top and leverage that connectivity capability that we have to drive that infrastructure advantage for us, we then get to go right into the cycle of leveraging that, driving improved quality of intelligence and lowering the cost at the same time of our token cost, monetizing that and driving that reinvestment back into that cycle of infrastructure. We certainly demonstrated our capability to go monetize this infrastructure with key partners in the industry. For example, we signed a deal with Anthropic just recently to give them access and host their model on our data center, while at the same time allowing us to make investments in our own model, with an example of that being the deal that we announced with Cursor related to improving our own coding capability on our compute resources. So continuing down the path of monetization and leveraging our, what we believe is best in class in the industry, deployment of cutting edge compute, and at the same time, continuing to invest in our own models to even further that monetization in the future. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that we believe one of our differentiators related to our models is certainly the fact that we are designing them as advanced truth-seeking AI from the very beginning. It's certainly one of the reasons that Elon got into the AI business to begin with, is to have that really truth-seeking model. We certainly are also going to leverage the X platform that we have in place now that really brings us real-time information. Real-time data is, I think, critical at all times, and I don't know that there's a better place to get real-time data than on X. So our growth strategy starts with space, increasing our launch payloads, getting to full reusability from Starship perspective, and certainly over time opens up whole new markets in the space industry. But what it immediately does is it enables our connectivity business to grow meaningfully, and now AI as well, where it's not just growth of our own platform on the infrastructure side, it also allows us to start hosting others and building out that piece of our AI business model. So there's almost $6 trillion of available market that we're going after, really in three pieces. We are moving faster and cheaper than others in the industry, even related to deploying terrestrial compute. And we think over time, the enterprise AI market is massive. So an incredibly large total addressable market that we're going after, over $28 trillion. Not only are we positioned for those markets today, but I think it's exciting to talk about where some of the future growth beyond that really is even happening. And certainly when you start talking about space, we start to talk about point-to-point transportation terrestrially, manufacturing or productivity, potentially asteroid mining in the future. And I think very exciting also is the lunar economy. The fact that we're on track in the next couple of years to put boots back on the moon, being able to build out sustainable capabilities on the moon, I think in the years to come will be a tremendous unlock for humanity. We feel like we've had a stellar track record already related to capital allocation and value creation. If you look at even in the life of the company from a space and connectivity business, the fact that we really only raised $9 billion and have created the business that we now have today, with last year alone generating $7.8 billion in positive adjusted EBITDA, while also investing for the future with another $3.6 billion of R&D just last year alone. I think clearly we have demonstrated both on the capital allocation side and the value creation that this is what we're all about. And what that means from a financial perspective on top line, revenue has continued to grow meaningfully year after year after year. In fact, in 25 alone, over 30% growth year over year, just as we were starting to ramp, in essence, in the connectivity business. In generating that roughly $19 billion in revenue, also generated almost $7 billion in positive adjusted EBITDA just last year alone. And then in the connectivity business portion, you can see the significant step up where we grew roughly 50% in 2025 year over year. And then as far as building the infrastructure of the future, that typically takes capital. And so we are not alone in investing meaningfully in CapEx, especially in the AI side of the business now. And that's been the lion's share of the CapEx deployment for the last 2 years now that we have consolidated in our AI business into the fold here, where just last year alone, roughly $21 billion of CapEx, but a large percentage of that was for AI. And you're already seeing us monetizing a decent amount of that with the hosting deal that we just announced on the Anthropic side. And then on the financials for Q1, we delivered roughly $5 billion of top line just in the first quarter. The connectivity segment alone was a highlight with roughly $3 billion of that revenue just in Q1. But if you look at where we think we will be in the longer term, our future model, we think that our revenue growth will be even significantly higher than that year over year. We think our gross margins are more like 70%, and that our GAAP net income margin is more like 45%. And so we're very excited about where we're ramping into related to the profitability of business, and yet the significant growth that we believe we're marching towards. And so lastly, why do we think we're going to win? I think it starts first and foremost with our global leadership position in orbital launch services. We have an unrivaled satellite and connectivity platform that really leverages vertical integration from design, manufacturing, deployment, and operations. And now really truth-seeking AI models enhanced by real-time data from our X platform. That extreme vertical integration really enables high velocity and superior cost efficiency at scale. And really, the business models are incredibly difficult to replicate. Right? Because of the fact that at the core, you first have to have that global leadership position in orbital launch. And so that unique ability to scale into new trillion-dollar markets across space, connectivity, and AI is certainly a reason that we think we're going to win and continue to be this mission-driven culture that is enabled by our world-class talent. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
So there you have it, straight from a SpaceX, the CFO there, discussing some of the ways that SpaceX is looking to, some of the ways they change the world, some of the things they use for their plan. I mean, but you have to realize when you have IPOs and they're on the road shows, they're going to present their literal best foot forward. So what you're seeing is their best foot forward. We're going to jump into another video here in just a second, another interview. Like I said, I want to give you interviews, and I want to give you the setup from exactly the people who are running these initiatives, the SpaceX CEOs, CFOs. The backside is going to have, the last interview will be the Elon Musk interview. But you always have to think about your own point of view when you invest. If you're long-term investing, short-term investing, but don't just go out and buy something because you think that it's the next hot thing or the next best thing. That's a surefire way to lose some money. You want to have a thesis because these things can be bumpy. There are plenty of charts that show how there are plenty of charts that show markets going up, markets going down, but 5 years later you'll have in general the markets are down lower. So not the markets, I'm sorry, the IPOs are lower after 5 years. We're going to get into another here, same guy, the CFO, out on out on his tour. We're going to hop right back in there, and this one's a little bit longer, so take your time. You know, go dig into a beverage or whatever it is you may need. And we're streaming these straight from their platform, so they should appreciate the shout outs. I just know this is a really big topic happening right now. It's got us up late night. These are questions that just keep coming in about SpaceX and the IPO. So here's another one. Like I said, this one's a little bit longer. Sit back and enjoy. Take notes if you need to.
Everything you do.
Yep.
You are 10 years ahead of the world in reusability, but Starship is designed for rapid reusability and dramatically more mass to orbit at a much lower cost. So can you just talk about launch, how important it is, and then Starship in the context of that?
Yeah, I think launch, if you're going to be a space company, you know, I tell people it's hard to be a space company and not have a assured access to space. And so we started out making sure that we had launch nailed down. And Elon really focused on driving down, you know, the cost of access to space at a far cheaper price than anyone had ever even thought of before. You know, we're now, you know, lowest cost per kilogram to space ever in the industry, and we're looking for Starship to do another 10x improvement as we get to rapid reusability with Starship. So it is definitely at the core of what we do, and it's the enablement for all of the other businesses, whether it's, you know, Starlink or direct to cell very soon, or now AI compute. And so I think you absolutely have to start when you talk about SpaceX by talking about our launch capabilities. And Starship will be, to your point, next level, because what we're doing now is taking on this huge, I would say, like the holy grail of rocketry, which is rapid reusability. You know, it's one thing to bring back the first stage, which is amazing, right? And transforming the industry. But we did that 10 years ago with Falcon. What we're doing now is we're flying the largest rocket ever built with the goal of it getting to aircraft-like operations. And that is a completely different dynamic, but I think that's what it will take to be that catalyst for the whole space industry related to kind of turning the 2030s into something that we had expected when we were kids. Related to the space industry.
Where in the Starship program are we? We just had a launch. It was, you know, a V3 of the ship and the booster. It felt like, I will admit, it felt kind of like we were both there. It felt like a high risk event heading into an IPO, but from my perspective, and as far as I could tell from the SpaceX team, it seemed very successful. So what did we learn? Where are we with Starship? And where are we on that path to rapid reusability?
I think our first launch of V3 that you're referring to from just last week was a huge success for us. You know, the fact that we were able to demonstrate the full system capability, the new V3 Raptor engines, all of the changes that you saw on the bottom of the vehicle, all the operational changes that we did as well, and then you saw that soft splashdown at the end of the second stage, I think gives us a lot of conviction about where we're going, not just, you know, in years to come, but really even in the next couple of flights. And that's really exciting, because that is, as we were talking about, that platform or catalyst for the rest of the business. You know, having a rocket that can take 100 metric tons to low Earth orbit is going to be hugely important for everything we're about to go do.
And that's 100 metric tons at what cost relative to Falcon? At what cost?
Well, I think, you know, as soon as we can bring back that second stage to the tower and start rapidly reusing it in the next, we'll just say in the next couple of years, I think you're going to experience a 10x from a cost per kilogram to space from where we're at with Falcon today. And so that is, I think, a huge springboard for multiple pieces of our business.
I think of launch as enabling a variety of applications for SpaceX as a company. And, if kind of, Microsoft, they had the operating system and enabled a lot of applications. Launch is foundational. And the first and the biggest and most well-known application is Starlink and your connectivity business. And can you just give us a sense of the scale of that business, the growth of that business?
Yeah, it's very exciting because we actually haven't been in the connectivity business for that long. When you think about it, really having our first production satellites in space back 6 years ago and ramping that business to where we're at today with over 10 million customers and over 10,000 satellites that we have now flown to space in 160 plus countries around the world, it is clear that we're delivering a capability that the world really wants. And I think that, it just gives you so much conviction when you're delivering a great product. And we've had so many notes in. In fact, we send out an email each month with, how many communities around the world we've had a positive impact in. It's really special, whether it's, indigenous tribes in Canada or down in Brazil where we're connecting, schools or in Africa where they haven't had any connectivity before. Bringing something like Starlink to the world has been pretty amazing. And so, what it's done is it's given us an extension of the mission we were talking about. First and foremost, we want to make mankind multiplanetary, but above and beyond that now, having the ability to connect the other 3 billion people on the planet and really bridge that digital divide has been really special for folks. And, I think that really resonates. But yes, I agree, Starlink was that first piece of the business. And I think that 10 million customers can become hundreds of millions of customers around the world in time because of the fact that, it's so much more efficient to deliver to so many different locations from space than it is terrestrially. And so we're just heading down that path right now. And we're incredibly vertically integrated related to it. So I think, we end up being a little bit of the blockers now become our own capabilities, which is great. That's exactly the way we want it. But what Starlink also was, I would say, that catalyst for the Falcon business to really ramp up operationally. Because, if you don't have payloads kind of lining up, then you don't really have a reason to go from 10 launches to 22. We launched 165 times last year with our Falcon vehicles. And what we would do is we bring multiple stacks of Starlink, satellites to the launch site such that when there's an opening between launches of third-party satellites, we can then, we're going to take that slot for Starlink. And so now, as you go into our next phase with Starship, I think we have another catalyst like that. And above and beyond Starlink now, we're going to have AI compute satellites.
Absolutely, 100%. And I'm super excited to talk about AI compute. But I do think it is Starlink. I'd love to just double click there because I am a former telecom analyst. So it is near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
And just some observations that come to mind for me. One, people have forgotten how big the telecom markets are. We'll just call it round numbers, 800 billion for kind of, internet access, 800 billion for, cellular connectivity. So $1.6 trillion market, plus or minus, to within the nearest 200 billion. And what really strikes me as a student of the telecom industry is there's never actually been a differentiated or disruptive product in telecom before, because everybody has access to the same towers, broadly speaking, the same rights of way and the same equipment. The products end up being very similar. And this was true for local telephony. It was true for long distance. It's true for cellular. I am a very serious video gamer. I'm not very good, but I play I play video games the way a lot of my peers play golf.
You and my boss.
But I am, I'm like, I take it very seriously.
Yeah.
And my grandfather used to say that age and treachery will always triumph over youth and skill. And in video game terms, that means having the best GPU and the best connectivity.
Sure.
every location I've been to, Starlink is better. It is faster and it is lower latency. And I think latency is a very important point for the user experience. So can you just talk about how this product differentiation is going to help you go from 10 million to 100 million to hundreds of millions?
Yeah, I think, it's pretty funny because it's for sure, we'll talk about broadband in a minute, but especially if you think about the direct to device that we're going to ramp, right? Our next generation of direct to cell or direct to device will be 5G quality, right? In the next 2 years. We're about to bring something that's pretty, unique to say the least, and something I think anyone would want, which is to go anywhere with your phone, have global roaming, be out in the middle of the desert on the highest mountain and not have dead zones. I mean, these are pretty special things that I think people would want and probably pay extra for, but especially if it's the same price. So I think we are very excited about bringing a very differentiated product to the market. Again, it feels great when you're bringing a product, I think that's great for everybody. It's also going to be great for disaster recovery. And when, there are emergencies, the fact that the network doesn't go down and you don't have to worry about the tower being out. But circling back on the broadband side, the fact that you can deliver low latency, to your point, I think that's really critical, low latency, high speed capability, really everywhere, other than the countries that I'm not allowed to go into, is something that just won't make sense terrestrially. And so I think it will become harder and harder to justify many of the deployments on a terrestrial perspective because Starlink now exists. And I do think that, people really now are starting to see, even on aircraft, right? When you start to see all the announcements, United Airlines, now American Airlines, just announced, and many of the others without listing over and over again, getting on an airplane and having that type of low latency, high speed experience really kind of opens people's eyes to what it could be at their own homes or offices as well.
Awesome. And I do think I'm glad you brought up the disaster, what SpaceX does anytime there's a natural disaster.
Yeah.
It has undoubtedly saved lives.
For sure.
Surging Starlinks for free, turning them on, this has saved lives.
Yes.
So outside of Starlink and orbital compute, which absolutely merits its own discussion, what are the other applications enabled by Starship or businesses? What are you most excited about?
Well, I do think on the connectivity side, those two businesses will ramp nicely. And what's also great about those is I think when people think about space, they think about the new markets that we will create in the years to come, which I agree with that, whether it's point-to-point transportation on Earth and 30 minutes flying to Singapore kind of thing, or whether it's the lunar economy. I think all of those will happen. But what I think people discount is there are massive, to your point, almost $2 trillion of existing markets just on connectivity that are existing markets today terrestrially. And so the fact that you're able to deliver a better product in an existing Earth market before even talking about space is probably what gets missed some of the time.
And it's not just a better product. You do have a cost advantage.
Yes.
Yes.
You're not digging ditches, right?
Yes.
You're not digging ditches. You're not spending all that huge amount of upfront cost. You really send the terminal out. Once you've established your network of satellites, you send the terminal out, and that's basically most of your customer acquisition cost.
Yeah. Better, faster, cheaper has
Yes.
been a winning experience.
It's a good combo,
yes. In my time as a tech investor. But any one or two of those markets, whether it's freight, whether it's point-to-point travel,
I think the next big one, though, is going to be AI compute.
Okay.
And so we should definitely spend some more time on that. But I think that is a market that really needs Starship to really happen.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're large payloads, and you really are focused on cost. And so I think that's the one that's kind of near and dear for us, because you already see those next two happening, right? And this will just be a significant enhancement. If I think about what Starship's going to do for our broadband satellites, our V3 satellites that we're about to fly in the coming months here on Starship, every Starship launch of those satellites brings 20 times the capability of what we're flying with a Falcon launch today. So it is a huge enablement for our broadband business, and soon to bring 5G capability on the direct to cell.
So Starship, rapid reusability, they really enable this much larger Starlink constellation. That takes us from 10 million to the hundreds of millions. They actually lower the cost of Starlink further by lowering the launch cost. And they enable this exciting new, they'll enable direct to cell, which is awesome, but they will enable orbital compute. And I would love to just, people hear data centers in space. Yes. And after lots of interactions on X, I've realized that a lot of people are picturing like a Pentagon-sized building floating around in space. And that is not what it is.
No.
It is orbital compute is racks in space. And like, let's start there. Like, I'm sure there's going to be images available to people, but just describe what one of these satellites is going to look like so people can conceptualize it.
Yeah, I love the racks in space. I might steal that from you. I think that's the right way to think about this. I actually had the same issue when someone said data centers in space internally the first time. I thought, oh wait, how are we going to connect all these pieces together? Yeah. And they're like, Johnson, this is literally like another constellation. Oh, okay. But really, you then realize virtual networking has been, obviously a key component of networking for a number of years now. And this is that same concept of virtually networking rack by rack, to your point, of satellites that look just basically like larger versions of the Starlink V3 satellite we're about to fly for broadband. A lot more solar and now compute over the top related to, we'll just start with NVIDIA, GPUs on there, and a large, kind of sheet of metal from a radiative cooling capability perspective. But otherwise, looks largely the same as what we're flying from a comms perspective, although we've pulled the comms payloads off, obviously. But really, I feel like people think that this is a completely new concept for us, and it's not. Kind of logical extension of the satellite technology that we're already using today, with all the connectivity down, to Earth, with the intersatellite links connecting the different satellites together, the prop systems. I mean, there's so much of what we're already doing with Starlink today that we immediately get to benefit from on these. And I think when people see the picture of one satellite versus another satellite, they kind of aha moment kicks in of, oh, well, these guys are going to be able to do this very quickly.
Main Street, I can feel your eyes start to gloss over. There's still plenty more to that interview if you want to check it out. But those are some of the basic points, and that's from SpaceX's CFO and one of their longest serving employees. He's been there with executives. He's been there with Elon since the beginning, as he stated before. He's really bought into the mission over there at SpaceX. Once again, this isn't to say you should buy SpaceX or you should not buy SpaceX. This is more just to let you know about SpaceX. You should know what you're investing in. You hear the hottest things out in the world, but maybe all you know about SpaceX is they shoot rockets or they have satellites. Learn about this company, learn about the valuations and the way that they see profitability, and they see the way that they're going to grow in the future. And I think the CFO here, Mr. Johnson, did a great job explaining that. We're going to jump into like some of the reasons why this IPO is different here in just a second. And then we will show the Elon Musk, Jamie Dimon interview, which is great. So thanks for joining in. This session is great. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or send them in the comments. We'll get back to you even if you're not watching this live as it happens. Hit subscribe, hit like. We'll get back to it right now. And like I said, the interview with Elon Musk will be coming up in just a few minutes. IPOs have been a hot topic, and we've seen the stock market here recently. The S&P was on a record run, right? I think it had been up for 9 straight weeks. And until yesterday, it was supposed to be up 10 straight. It was tracking to be up 10 straight weeks, which would have been the longest streak since 1985. But it sell-off happened yesterday, and it definitely did not happen. A lot of people are thinking that the sell-off is, and this goes into IPOs and the crypto flush. People think that maybe the crypto flush is due to IPOs. But once again, like I said, I was sitting there speaking with Brad Olson over at Mazinga. He brought up a really good point with crypto. Well, first of all, his point is that a lot of the mouthpieces for crypto or Bitcoin have started selling their coins. Mark Cuban came out. I believe he cited the Mark Cuban statement where Mark Cuban came out and he sold all his Bitcoin. Michael Saylor, who owns Strategy,
he sold some Bitcoin, Strategy sold some Bitcoin, and people saw that as a big ripple effect. But Strategy still owns a ton of Bitcoin. But we've seen Bitcoin's hit level. We haven't seen hit since the 2020 or 2021. It's been a long time since Bitcoin seen these levels below 60,000 right now. So it's just a very interesting thing. But people are thinking maybe they're taking money from crypto to prepare for these new IPOs coming out. Like I said, we're going to show the Elon Musk, Jamie Dimon interview here in a little bit. So stay tuned for that. But just thinking about these IPOs coming out. So people are going to need money to fund these things. SpaceX is coming out like, I think 1.7 trillion in their IPO, but they don't really have revenue. They're losing money right now. And the bankers are placing this out to people like, look at their 2030 guidance. That's when they're projected to earn money. One thing that did come out is that Google set to pay them, I think, $900 million a month to use some of their stuff for SpaceX. The other thing with SpaceX, and this isn't a case for SpaceX or against SpaceX, or just so you know, like no stock recommendations. I can tell you when IPOs come out, especially here lately, and this was some of the things that David Snyder, who I had a conversation with, the mystery broker over on CNBC, he stated in his research, he's shown that 5 years after an IPO, the stock's usually down. So that's something to think about and look at. Long story short, you'll probably be able to get these stocks a little bit lower than general, a little bit lower than when they come out. And he showed, I think he was citing ServiceNow as the one, or it was Salesforce, one of them that just came out, and it was like the 5-year mark, and you just saw where the stock had been down, which plays into, so there's another fund like Kathy Woods, she has an art innovation fund, and that usually takes in, first of all, high beta. So if y'all remember, we're talking about beta and alpha. A beta of 1 is pretty much mirrors the stock market. It's as risky as the stock market, but her stuff is way higher than 1 because it's new. They don't have growth. They have a lot of growth, but they don't have earnings per se. They don't have stable earnings. So it makes them higher risk for you to get your capital back before, and it's more volatile. And she creates funds like these, and she tells you ahead of time, like, this is a long-term investment. But that fund came out maybe like 5 years ago. It came out right around COVID, right around before COVID, or right around during COVID. And it's really down a lot in 5 years. But there are all these IPOs that are inside of them, high beta stocks. So it went up and now it's back down. So that's what you'll see. You'll see this initial rush where people are going out to get them. The SpaceX IPO is a little bit different. And Anthropic filed, and then Sam Altman's company. I don't know why it's leaving my brain right now. But Anthropic and Sam Altman's company also filed, or they're setting up for the IPOs. Some maybe it's the second half of this year, which we're almost there right now in the second half of 2026. Sit there and let that marinate for a minute. This year is flying by. And then you have some set for the earlier part of 2027. We saw Cerebras come out. They make really big chips as opposed to other people who make small chips, and that's being really simplified for what they do. But they came out a couple weeks ago. That stock's down a lot from the initial price offering, but it kind of stabilized it's just following position of what it does. But generally with IPOs, so we're talking about IPOs in general, right? Generally with IPOs, retail investors can't get IPOs. They can't really get any of the shares. They'll go out, they'll have an IPO roadshow, these private companies before they come public. So initial public offering, IPO. Before they become public, you'll have these companies, they'll go out almost called a roadshow and try to get people to invest. Yeah, they'll have round A, round B, round whatever. And the round is just how many different times they go out and invest. You hear people talk about the valuation. They'll say they'll say a series, or did Series A at $100 billion valuation, right? So that means that's just like the first round, they went out to raise money. Whoever got it, if you got it, 10% is that $100 billion valuation. They do a Series B, then that's the second time they've gone out, and maybe the valuation's gone up. Probably the valuation's gone up, but they're raising more money, so maybe it's $200 billion valuation, and that same 10% will cost you twice as much to get it, to invest in. So that's when you hear people talk about those numbers and how they jump. But you have to remember, even if you're buying in at these valuations, say you're buying in where they're at, when they're doing these Series A's or whatever, like you take a couple like Anthropic. Anthropic right now is, I think, on like Series H maybe, or F or H. And so they've raised money, and every time the level they're raising at is going up, right? That can lead to people being diluted earlier down as to how much like your actual volume is worth, unless you set it up in your account, or you set up in the agreement that you set up that you can't get diluted, or you have non-dilution shares that can't be diluted or someone else is losing every time you do around it, because there's only so much in the pie, and eventually there's diminishing return because if you keep splitting up the pie, I mean, you create new stocks. I think that's kind of what Ron Cohn was talking about with GameStop. Maybe, I don't know. That's still, I can't wait to hear how that plays out, see how that plays out. But so with the initial public offerings, like I said, you go and then you get these rounds. But let's say you did buy in even if you bought in at the H series, let's say you bought at the H series at a $1 trillion valuation for 10%. So 10 times more than the person who bought in at the $100 billion valuation for that 10%. But then the stock goes public in that initial bump. But they usually have lock-in times. So you can't sell these stocks immediately. You have to hold them for a while. But that's where you usually see that initial bump, right? So that $1 trillion company, and their companies don't come public at $1 trillion before. They used to not come public at $1 trillion. They're coming public at $1 trillion now. So these numbers aren't exactly crazy. But it comes out at $1 trillion, and then the stock sells or whatever price goes up, and now the company's worth 2, 5, 10 trillion on paper, paper stock prices, and you 10x your investment. Or if you got in at the 100 billion valuation, you've like 100x it, so it's just, and that's how people make money with the private markets going public. And then you have employees who, in these situations, sometimes the private company stock are part of the compensation. So they may not even pay anything for these stocks. They may have been gifted to them. And those people want to sell those stocks sometimes because they need that money. They've sat and taken years of pay cuts, waiting for these days. But you have, like I said, you'll have lockup periods where people can't sell their stocks. They'll have to be locked up for a little while. And 30, 60 days. And then you have periods, speaking of lockup periods, you have lockup periods before these companies can go into indexes. So like the NASDAQ or the S&P 500, back to SpaceX actually is structured very different. SpaceX is structured where like 30% is going out to retail investors. They structured their initial stock price at $135 per share. So, but I can tell you once that goes live, we're in the open market, that stock price is going to probably go way up to begin, goes way down. Elon Musk's probably going to pull out all his hair, but I would imagine it's going to go way up to begin, as people try to get it, supply versus demand. Well, SpaceX could eventually merge with Tesla and their Gronk. They have AI capabilities, and SpaceX does. I mean, whoever you say, I don't think rocket science is easy. They send spaceships up and they catch them on the way back down. So whatever that may be, there's some value in that. But they spend a lot of money, right? They're burning through capital, right? Hence the reason these companies are going public is because they need more money. Some of the reason these companies stay private is because they don't want people to see their books. There's less scrutiny. They don't have to deal with SEC regulations per se. They don't have to do public reporting. If you want to know more about public reporting, me and Brad Olson, one of our last conversations, actually talked about that, whether reporting less or more often is better for corporations and investors alike. But so back to why companies might stay public or private. And then once they go public, like I said, you get that windfall of cash if you need more money to invest, or you need more money. Maybe they're just in a huge deficit. They just need cash to meet their growth and revenue. Sometimes your growth outpaces the actual cash that you have, their cash flow and their burn. Like these companies are spending a lot of money for this AI race and build up. And I don't think it's cheap to send spaceships to space or rockets to space, low orbit satellites, all these things. And now he sent, I think it was 10,000. So that's the thing about with IPOs. Like I said, SpaceX IPO is definitely different. Also in the SpaceX IPO, we have the 30% lockup for retail investors. So you have platforms, I think like Robinhood is going to be housing that where retail investors can get. They are Fidelity dropped their minimum. So usually I think a minimum account has to have, it was like $500,000 to even invest in an IPO. They dropped that down to like $2,000 for the account balance so that people can, quote unquote, more retail investors can get handed this. One thing you have to realize is like Elon Musk and Tesla, that was like one of the original retail investor meme stock movements. And he has a cult of people who follow him. I don't mean cult in like the bad way, like dangerous type cult. I mean, it's a cult that's like, it could be dangerous because they create a lot of capital for Tesla, but I mean a cult following in that people love what he does. Some love him, some hate him. So it works both ways for Elon Musk. That blade cuts either way. And he wants them to have access because I think one of the big things that they were planning on, like I said, this is a little bit different, a lot different actually. They're already going to be fast tracked into the NASDAQ 100 and maybe NASDAQ 300 indexes as well. So they're going to go into people's retirement portfolios. I actually had Samuel Brent reach out to me about that one over at Business Insider, see my thoughts on SpaceX quick inclusion into quick inclusion into index funds, because that impacts your retirement if you have the index funds in there, if you have those NASDAQ index funds. Because generally what they want to see before they include companies into it, and the S&P 500 Global did not allow, they're not going to allow SpaceX in there without the appropriate time. So S&P 500, you have to wait a year before you can enter, before you can be considered to enter. You have to have a profitable company, like, and you have to have a certain volume. Market cap. They're going to be fine with the market cap, but we'll see if they're profitable by that time. So there's no reason that they will be. I mean, I assume they'll be fine with the market cap. If they're not fine by the market cap by that time, they definitely won't be profitable enough to go into there. But we're assuming the market cap's still fine, and we'll see if they're profitable enough in a year to go into the S&P 500. But why this matters to you, Main Street, and anyone listening, is that let's say this company goes into your retirement account and you're a year away from retirement and it's very volatile. Tesla's already in the S&P 500, so it's already in your retirement account. Most indexes, I should say, because most indexes are some fund that mirrors the S&P 500, especially if you just have a target date fund inside your retirement account. So you probably have some exposure to Tesla, is what I'm telling you. You probably have exposure to a lot of companies. But if SpaceX was to go in there, you have this volatility factor going up and down. That's usually higher than companies that are inside the S&P 500. They're inside people's retirement accounts. So but I mean, it would be a small percentage, but that would affect retirees. I don't think it would impact their ability to retire unless it just grew into some oversized position. It just had some parabolic run and became part of that 40% that tech is taking up right now inside the S&P 500. But we saw that yesterday. We saw the swoosh back down when those things sell off. We'll talk about that in a little bit with the flush. But you also have, it's just going to be interesting. It's almost going to be like a case study because they are included in the NASDAQ. And then some of the other things. So I want to talk about other things that are specific to the SpaceX IPO. I think there was reports or rumors or whispers that Musk wanted some of the banks that were using that they were going to use, like Goldman Sachs is helping to put out the IPO. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Robinhood plays a part. I think they're playing a big part with the retail investor. Like I said, Fidelity's helping to where their people can get to, like retail investors they lowered the minimum, but they want these banks to use their AI. They want to so it's like, I don't want to say it's quid pro quo, but it's definitely, I shake your hand, you shake mine. It's not the first time those type of things have happened. I don't think this is new to this type of deal, or it's the first thing that these happen. This type of thing has happened. At the end of the day, we know Wall Street's definitely about, they're definitely about their money. I don't know if you ever noticed, but Wall Street rings that bell, and whether the stock market's up a lot or down a lot, they're usually clapping their hands and celebrating because people make money on Wall Street both ways, when it goes up or when it goes down. And that's just a fact. It's just how it works. So like I was saying, I was trying to think if there's anything else just interesting with the SpaceX IPO this coming. So like I said, the 135, then we have the valuation gap. Like I said, if you and the retail investor, Elon Musk wants to give them access to this so that they can push it more. And, this is what I mean by like Main Street meets Wall Street, is that what he's doing. Is he helping Main Street meet Wall Street? And people always throw retail investors, like retail investors are uneducated, but that's just so far from the truth. So do they have the financial literacy? And my definition of financial literacy is different from whatever, the ability to evaluate, digest, evaluate, and then make informed decisions about what they're doing, right? That's more what I consider with financial literacy a baseline. We can obviously go much deeper. I could write a paper on what financial literacy is, in my opinion. But you have IPOs, like I said, and then you have the SpaceX. So it's just generally different. It's going to be different. It's going to be harder. I don't want to say it's going to be harder for him to fail but you saw what happened with Tesla. I think it will be volatile. I think it's something to be watched. I've told Samuel it'll be interesting to see like 1 year from now when you see the 1 year results, how that NASDAQ actually performed, because you can pull it out and see what the SpaceX portion has done versus what the S&P 500 has done. People also said that Musk may merge SpaceX, Tesla, and Grok together so he can reach his compensation package of $1 trillion. which will pay him up to like $1 trillion if I remember correctly. But I think there may be some language in there where you he may not be able to reach it by doing it that way, but he may. Either way, Elon Musk's last compensation package report, this one, the one they're fighting in courts, was outrageous at the time, and people thought he could never reach it, and he reached it. So we shall see. But that's IPOs, just how IPOs are kind of broken down. So if anyone ever wants to learn more about IPOs, and you hear initial public offerings, that's just one of the ways. And that's not even including specs, which is another thing, because that's how a lot of companies have been going public lately. They're going public via spec. But I think we covered IPOs. Like I said, the crypto flush, I think, goes almost directly into the IPOs. It plays a part. And then, like Brad said, you have the mouthpieces selling their crypto, selling their Bitcoin. But some of these people have held Bitcoin for a very long time. Bitcoin is reaching levels that it has not seen in a very long time. If you want to see some pros or cons to Bitcoin, we definitely have it covered on both sides of the channel. Some of the videos, some of the Bitcoin skeptics might make you not ever want to buy any kind of crypto. But we cover a lot of things on the channel. So we go real deep into the debt, the national debt, not just the actual debt, but what it costs to service the debt. So not the $39, $40 trillion it costs to service it. But we actually go deeper into the $160 trillion that it is to service the debt. And that's only growing every day, but we'll see. Also, that something that shouldn't go unmentioned is the fact that the Treasury started buying up long-term securities here recently. So Kevin Warsh is starting to put his fingerprint on. We have his first meeting coming up here next week, 2 weeks, in about 2 weeks. So it'll be interesting. I guess he'll probably give a presser since it's his first one, just to explain his stance, but I don't think he'll be giving as many press conferences as Jerome Powell. And we also hear a lot of Fed governors now looking and market participants thinking that rate hikes may be the next way that the market moves versus rate cuts. So we'll just see how that works as far as direction. And that could also play into the stock market flush that we saw going yesterday. Because yesterday we saw a very strong jobs data. We saw a labor number that was double expectations almost. So the market is adding jobs. It was really a widespread jobs report. I don't know if the government can keep adding jobs at that rate, but we did see a strong labor report. And I think that in turn push the stock market to say, okay, all right, so maybe we're not going to get rate cuts, because a lot of this thesis coming in 2026, as it was with 2025, is that rates will be lower at the end of 2020. At the end of this year, you will have mergers and acquisitions, and the rates were lower from beginning of 2025 to beginning of 2026. But that rates will be lower. We see a lot of M&A. The one big beautiful bill will stimulate this whole economy. Everything will grow, and people will be buying things hand over fist. AI is going to grow us out in productivity like we never seen before. But you have to look on the backside where AI may cause a situation where productivity gains can cause inflation and force the Fed to cut rates. Another point Brad made, I don't know, we'll see, it could work the other way. I mean, we could just outgrow this inflation, but we haven't seen prices keep up, or we haven't seen wages keep up with prices. So that's definitely something to look out for, because if prices keep going up without wages, but a strong labor market is one of the things that will keep the country out of recession or keep the economy going strong. But GDP growth has definitely slowed here in the last, and expectations have been brought back in for GDP growth. We'll just have to see. This market is different. There's more economy that we speak in. And if you want to learn more about the more economy, I want like a 2-hour video on the more economy, where you just have massive allocation, you have macro impacts, you have momentum, you have operations, you have a resiliency and a realignment, and then you have earnings. Like, that's what was driving these companies and driving the economy. But on the flip side, in the more economy, it can break and flip really fast, because some of these companies in this velocity and this speed, they overgrow their actual like earnings projections. Some people are looking way too far out. You have to ask yourself, so we saw a company like Micron, once again, not stock recommendations, but we saw a company like Micron that just shot up. If you looked at it from March, where it was below 400. And so just earlier this week, it was well over 1,000. I believe yesterday it closed under 900, or it will close under 1,000. I saw it, I think, under 900. But just the move in it, right? the velocity at which it changed, right? And this company in the Moore economy it's booked out with its data, and because they do storage, memory, booked out through the end of 2026. But with software, like that's a cyclical like type of trade sometimes, So it moves in big cycles, value perceived. They got well above what is historically their multiple. So sometimes those things have to come back in. But the orders didn't change, right? We didn't see any orders change. And it could have been, once again, back to the IPOs. It very well could have been people taking profits as well to prepare for this SpaceX IPO, because the same investors, not just say like, because these companies may be in indexes as well, but the same investors who were investing in these and Micron and companies like this may have just taken some profits. Because I mean, you can't be mad, you can't be upset with someone who entered that stock in March at less than $400 and sold it this week for 1,000, like, or trim some of their position. That would be prudent to trim some position. You got to keep some of these gains and maybe put them in lock them. So I don't know if you should take those gains and put them in an IPO, but it's prudent to trim that market position. But like I said, Micron is one of those companies, and it's just one of those things where market sentiment changes. Intel's another example. Intel's earnings were, before the Intel went on that parabolic run, Intel's earnings were like 32 times. So their earnings were like $1 per share. And stock was like $32, and it went up to like $130, $132. So their earnings went to well over 100. The price, not their earnings stayed the same. Price went up to like 100 times earnings. That's way too high in the market. And that came back down with a whoosh. But they have a different floor. They're real more. They have a lot of, they're the American, for those listening, air quotes, first chip maker right now. So they do have a strong solid floor, I think. And there's a lot of movement in there, but they're getting other competition. And we're hearing a lot of these companies vertically integrating and taking care of some of these things themselves, like Google's making chips. I think Meta said they're making some. Meta can't get out their own way. Once again, not stock recommendations, but Meta announced they're spending more capital expenditures on AI development, which may be the thing they need to do. I don't know, but their shareholders in the stock market did not like it. So once again, not stock recommendations, but we see these things. And like I said, we saw the stock market flush. So could some of that money been from crypto? Also, another thing with crypto is you have the crypto winter that comes every now. I mean, people want to deny or say it is what it is, but the numbers point to every about 4 years, Bitcoin takes a big hit. And it's right there in the middle of it right now. So hopefully we'll get someone to come on and go deep into why you should buy crypto. This isn't me saying you should buy crypto. I just want to have I want to have a bull on here because we have such a bear on here as well. So I want to have equal perspectives on crypto right now. But, the bulls are a little quiet right now with crypto. So that's the flush with crypto. And another thing to notice with crypto is when events, and I've mentioned this before, when events happen over the weekend, like crypto may go way up or crypto may go way down, because that's one of the only things that you can trade as well. So you can't trade equities, and you may have people who are trading Kalshi or addictive markets or something like that, but because those go all the time, but you can't trade equities or bonds or things like that. So people may just be trading crypto as well at that time. And you'll see that flush. Think back to when we first bombed back at the end of 2025. When we bombed Iran, crypto oil went way up over the weekend, but it kind of came back down, even back out. Crypto flushed, and then it kind of bounced back out because people were taking money from that to buy oil or buy futures. So it's just I want to say it's a circle. But when times get tough and affordability hits or people need money, and maybe for these IPOs, or maybe just for the affordability that we're feeling in the world with gas prices right now, we're not even talking about the war. We don't have enough time to go into geopolitical with Iran right now. Because like I said, I want to play that Elon Musk interview with Jamie Dimon here in just a second. But here, so like I said, you have a crypto flush, and then we saw the stock market just move, perhaps on people fears of returns from the AI investment. And AI investment, those big companies like 40% index, that's just way too much. We're seeing a rotation in the market. So we talk about the stock market flush and then the outlook. We're seeing a rotation in the market. We are seeing healthcare data okay comparatively yesterday or recently, where we see stuff going out of tech. We're seeing healthcare pick up. I'd say I don't know if you look at the Spurs and then you look at the Spurs, you look at the Knicks, one is the IGB, like one's software and one's SMH and one's semis, right? They're the only there was a point where there are only two players in this game right now because in the AI game, pretty much everything was made up in that ecosystem where people needed it. And it's like finals where you have to watch. Those are only two teams in it. But we've definitely seen a move right now where people are broadening out their investments and looking for other sectors. And internationally, shop to watch international. Because every now and then, international just comes back and makes some moves, which goes back to the point of diversification. People, we need to have that diversification inside of our retirement portfolios. So, been talking for a while, been talking for well over about an hour now. Thanks for staying with me so far. We're about to get into this recording here in a second, but just to recap, we were talking about the Knicks and Villanova and Brunson, so the leader of those teams, and how the Knicks have gone from the last time they were in the finals, 1999, where they were pretty much a growth stock. Now they're definitely more of a, integrated, maybe like an Apple, where they're bringing in value. And then you have Wemby and the Spurs, who right now, they are growth stocks, acquiring and trying to help meet their mergers and acquisitions to get to where they're going to right now. But they're facing some resistance, so they're down a couple games. We talked about IPOs, SpaceX's IPO is coming up, Anthropic's IPO, OpenAI's IPO. That's Sam Altman's OpenAI's IPO is coming up, which reviewed the Seabricks IPO, which just came out. Spoke about the history of IPOs and how David Snyder's research points out that 5 years after an IPO, they're usually lower. We spoke about whether crypto is a reason for this, the crypto flush, some of the reasons for it. Maybe it is investors wanting to spend money or building funds for these IPOs, for the SpaceX IPO, which is about to come out. We spoke in depth about the SpaceX IPO, but we're going to even look deeper into it here in just a while. And we just spoke about the stock market. So the stock market flush, some of the reasons, which can kind of be tied to it. I mean, investors, like I said, the stock market has been on a historic run. It's been on a very long bull run. Some would say a 17-year bull run. And even like the 9-week run that we just ended last week, where we were pushing for 10 to be one of the longest runs since 1985. That's just, the markets need to pull back sometimes, people. You have to understand, sometimes the market needs to pull back, and it might pull back even more as we go into this week. Like, you can see it deeper pullback. We're far from correction. We're far from correction. We're far from bear markets. Markets have to move. And I think we still have a lot of consternation happening in our government right now. So that could be some things like we're not even talking. We haven't even really played in that as to why the stock market is moving. The other day, President announced or stated just when he was talking that the war could go out past Labor Day or up till Labor Day. So markets adjusted to that, the geopolitical moves. And then Kevin Warsh, like I said, he's coming in and he already started hiring some people. We'll see how the market reacts to that. And history has shown for maybe 6 of the last 8 and 5 of the last 6 Fed chairs, they've been tested by the market when they come in with some type of event. Now, even if it's by the market, I think Jerome Powell had COVID not too long after he came in, and then there's just a lot of things going on. And a lot of people just in this market realize that we're almost, I mean, they say irrational exuberance all the time, referring to this market, and people saying invested, maybe people should be invested. You should be invested. I shouldn't say maybe people shouldn't be invested. You should be invested, but you can't. You have to be invested in a very smart way. You can't just go invest in something because everyone else is investing there. You can't invest in something because it's the hot thing at the time. You need to know what you're investing in. You need to know your why, right? So I said I was going to speak about the Knicks, and maybe the Knicks are the IGB, right? Maybe they're durable, man. These Knicks are your assets. You're thinking of the large cap software, maybe some dividend playing stewards, but they also have the defensive side, right? You got the cybersecurity or broad indexes. They provide you some systematic consistency in there. They're not going to dunk on the market every time, you know what I'm saying? They're not going to dunk on people, but they provide reliable compounding points, growth needed to secure retirement. And then, like I said, the Spurs, they may be a little bit more like SMH, a little more aggressive, Their assets, you got to think of semiconductors, high growth techs or emerging sector funds. They are, to win beyond them, man. These dudes come over internationally, like I said, you got to have your international exposures come over from France. He's taking the world by storm. Massive upside could drive your portfolio and your alpha, but they require the Knicks core to keep the portfolio stable. You know what I mean? While the market flushes. And the Knicks, I don't know, is this the new blueprint? we'll see. So, like I said, you just have to understand how this mix is applied to you. Are you a younger investor? You're an older investor. When you heard Wemby speaking, he was referring to how the Knicks are an older team that fought and they've lost, but he also spoke how they're not intimidated by the Knicks. You know, just because they're young, I think he didn't even know the fact that they were like one of the youngest teams in almost 50 years. That stuff doesn't matter. You know, once they toss up the ball, it doesn't matter whether you're the first guy or the 15th guy. When they put you on the court, you're one of the 10 guys on the court. So you got to play and fulfill your role. So and then the 2026 market outlook. So I'll probably recap that a little bit more. I want to give you a couple tips here at the end. We're going to take a second here, pull up this Mark Cuban. Not Mark Cuban. Sorry, Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban's I've been talking about him too much. Pull up the Elon Musk Jamie Dimon interview. If you want to sit here with me, it's a good one. You know, it takes a few minutes. But it is a good interview for those who haven't seen it. Also, while we're sitting here, just take a second. If you hadn't hit subscribe to the channel. If you haven't listened to any of the old podcasts, you should go on over there and check those out. We got some real cool stuff happening over there. And yeah. So we'll get over here to the Elon Musk. Whoops. Starting right there. Give me a second. We'll go over there to their interview, and this is run on Musk's platform. So X, like I said, no politics here. We've had stuff from CNBC, Fox News. We've shown all the platforms. So no politics here. But I do want people, because there are a lot of people who may never hear this interview, may not even get to hear them speak from their own point of view, their own perspective. So I want you to hear from the people who are bringing these initiatives to the world. Some of the leaders in AI and finance, these people are going to go down in history for our time. So good or bad, they will go down. So it takes time, sit back, maybe get you a beverage.
Of nowhere near where you go generally in space, but as high as we can get in New York City. But before we get started with you and Jamie, we had a very special guest that wanted to welcome you here this afternoon. And so your mother, Mae Musk, is here to welcome you.
Great.
Mae, please stand up.
I don't think you can see me or everybody here. Oh,
They can see you. Yes,
Okay.
he can.
This is your party.
I actually can't see my mom, but I can hear her certainly. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
So what I'd like to say is when you were 3 years old and I told people I have a genius son, they would roll their eyes. And then
Sure. Well, understandable, frankly.
I knew. And then when
Yeah.
you said you wanted to start with rockets, then I rolled my eyes.
Sure.
And then you did it. And so this is just a great party here, and we're celebrating.
Sounds
Love
good.
you,
that-
love you so much.
Love you too.
One proud mama, please.
So let me, privilege to have you in this for us, but it's an important thing, the trajectory of American innovation. You know, we're here live, 3,500 people of our top individual investors around the world in 100 branches. There are 350 people here, 3,500 around the country. This is a very unique thing, by the way, because Elon has spoken to me about democratizing finance. This is part of it, treating individual investors the same way institutions are treated, and hedge funds and all those things. So, my view is it's a wonderful thing to do. Elon, very brave, by the way, because I would never let my mother speak publicly when I was in the room. God knows what she would have said.
I had no idea she was there, actually.
But Elon's the Edison of our time. I remember visiting Elon in Tesla like 15 years ago. A whole new way of building cars, vertical integration, which had not been anything remote what our car companies are doing. Now you have SpaceX. I visited the SpaceX factory in California, and it's kind of exceptional to have more than 650 rockets. And you told me one today, putting satellites in space. You have 9,000, almost 10,000 Starlink satellites up there. Starlink 3 is coming, which is a whole new generation, which hopefully will replace some of these undersea cables. It's been an extraordinary 24 years with watching Elon grow over time. And now making a massive leap into the future. So welcome and coming here. Elon, I have 10 questions for you. So I want to make sure I get to each one. Some of them came from folks here. They're all kind of important. But one, just to start, is why SpaceX public now? Because you had choices, you didn't have to. Why now?
Yeah, I've been asked for many years about taking SpaceX public. So it's probably been, I don't know, almost 10 years that people have been suggesting to me that I should take SpaceX public. We've been positive cash flow for quite a long time. I think since around 2014, 2015, and we've been self-funding. In fact, in our sort of private equity rounds, they actually have not been fundraising rounds. They've been liquidity rounds for investors and employees, because we give everyone at the company stock. And SpaceX has actually bought back stock in most of our sort of funding events. So what's different about now is that, well, it's a number of things, but we are embarking on a significant growth phase, like a capital growth phase, where we are going to put in orbit probably 100,000 satellites, or probably over 100,000 satellites just for communications. And these will be of the version 3 and beyond versus version 2 and version 1 that are currently in orbit. Version 3 is, depending on how you count it, 10 to 20 times more capable than the version 2 satellite. And there were 3 chips that the SpaceX chip design team taped out that are specific to this, that are far beyond state of the art. Which means it's 100 times more bandwidth than the SpaceX Starlink system currently offers, and also half the latency, because the altitude will be about half the altitude. So I think it will actually be the highest bandwidth, lowest latency means of communicating. And the future with AI and robots is actually going to require a lot more bandwidth than we currently use. Because you can imagine, like, what's the bandwidth of a human? It's peak bandwidth of a human is a few hundred bits per second, but bandwidth of a computer can be 1 trillion bits a second. So the appetite for bandwidth of AI and robots is going to be enormous. And then we're also doing the AI data centers in space, which is another massive capital endeavor. But I think it'll be the primary means by which AI can be expanded. It's increasingly difficult to build power plants on the ground. There are very few people who want a power plant in their backyard. So if we wanted to, say, double the electricity usage of the United States, which is on average about 500 gigawatts, we would have to build about twice as many power plants, which I don't think people are, well, most communities are not super excited about that. But actually, if we go to space, we can go far beyond the electricity generation of Earth. In fact, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but you could actually increase harnessed energy by a factor of 1 million, and still be using much less than 1/1,000,000th of the sun's energy. So the current human civilization uses much less than 1/1,000,000th of the sun's energy output, which is kind of humbling to think about. We're really a tiny, when you see the true size of Earth relative to the sun, we're a tiny dust mote in a vast darkness. And the sun is enormous. The sun is 99.8% of all mass in the solar system, and most of the remaining 0.2% is Jupiter. So sometimes people ask me, I'm sort of maybe going a little wide-ranging in this answer, but because they just asked me why you're being public now, I'm like, I'm like talking about the sun's power output. I'm like, sort of a long-winded answer. Yeah, if I was an AI, you might tell me to, okay, but also, but it is important. Like some of these things are kind of important because people sometimes wonder what's the future of energy generation, and I could say that it is absolutely solar power, or maybe a better word for solar power is star power. It's the power of a star, and the crazy thing is that if you burnt all mass in the solar system that was not the sun, the amount of energy produced by the sun would still round up to 100%, because the sun is 99.8% of the mass of the solar system. Even if you teleported two more Jupiters from another solar system and burnt them too, the sun would round up to 100%. So it's very much the sun. And you can scale to 1 million times Earth's economy in space in terms of harnessed power, which is a good proxy for economic output, and still be much less than 1 millionth of the sun's energy, which is humbling, really, to think about how tiny we are. And this is just one star among many. So I guess the TLDR, it would be, we're embarking on a massive new growth phase, and we need capital for that.
Okay. Okay, number two.
Another thing is the revenue, like I also feel pretty good about like the revenue projections. Meaning like before, like revenue was a little unstable, but now I feel like the revenue is like much more predictable. Yeah.
I always learn listening to you, I guarantee you. So, when people hear about multi-planetary species, travel to space, one of the most exciting ideas in human history. Can you explain the bridge that you speak about? I've heard you talk about from the Earth to the Moon to Mars.
Yeah. Yeah, so you don't necessarily have to go through the moon to get to Mars. I just think that we can build a self-growing city on the moon faster than we could do so on Mars. And there's also the potential, if you say you want to scale far beyond what you can do from Earth, is that because the moon has no atmosphere and about 1/6 Earth's gravity, you can use an electromagnetic accelerator, a railgun or mass driver. Basically, you don't need to use rockets to do AI data centers into deep space from the moon. You can literally just shoot them like a railgun type of thing, and you can manufacture the solar and the radiators, solar power and radiators on the moon from moon materials. That would allow scaling potentially to beyond 1,000 terawatts a year, which is a truly staggering number. Like I think we can do 1,000. I think we can do probably somewhere around 1 terawatt per year of AI space compute from Earth, but we can do 1,000 terawatts or more from the moon. And like I said, we can also make a moon base, and I think it would be pretty cool if you could, vacation on the moon. Like that would be the most epic vacation, like not everybody wants to go to the moon, but I think a lot of people do. I think it would be pretty amazing to sort of, obviously provided you could do so safely, and come back safely and everything. But I think that will be possible in the future. And then Mars is another step beyond that. That's Mars is a whole planet, and with gravity much closer to that of Earth, and it has an atmosphere, albeit with an atmosphere. And if you warm up Mars, you could one day make Mars like Earth, meaning with like liquid oceans and life, and where you could walk outside without a spacesuit type of thing. So Mars is I call Mars a fixer-upper of the planet, but it's got a lot of potential.
Let me go to number 3. But I never ever thought you'd be in the hospitality business.
Yeah. Absolutely. We should have moon hotels, don't you think? Yeah.
Musk hotels.
Well, it could be other. Actually, you think of us more like we're kind of like the Union Pacific, You know, when they built Union Pacific back in the day, people thought they were crazy because, like, why are you trying to carry all this cargo and people to California? No one's there. But now California is the biggest state in the country.
Not for long, but yeah.
Yeah, no, admittedly, it's self-defeating.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Starship, you built it, unbelievable ship. I think it's already had 12 flights, I read. But obviously, technically, it's just hard to do. What were some of the breakthroughs you had that people should know about that they don't know about?
Well, our webcasts are very good, so I recommend anyone who wants, if they want to learn about Starship, the SpaceX website or any of the Starship live casts are a great way to learn about it. But the fundamental breakthrough of Starship is that it will be the first orbital rocket that is fully reusable. So this might sound like an obvious thing, but because in every other mode of transport, whether that's aircraft, cars, bicycles, horses, you name it, ships, these are all, we take it for granted that they are reusable. An aircraft journey would be very expensive if you had to throw the plane away every time. And that's how rockets have been in the past. But it's very difficult from a technology standpoint to achieve full reusability for a rocket. We've got part of the way there with Falcon 9, but we'll get all the way there with Starship. And once you achieve full reusability, then it's simply a cost. It's simply the cost of access to orbit is just the cost of propellant, because now you can reuse all aspects of the vehicle. And the propellant we use for Starship is liquid oxygen and liquid methane, which is the cheapest propellant you could possibly get. I mean, we can just literally get oxygen from the air and methane from natural gas. So the cost of propellant for Starship will be less than the cost of jet aviation fuel, which means that you should be able to actually send cargo to space for less than the cost of cargo on an airplane going on a transoceanic trip.
Unbelievable. Starlink, another thing that has been amazing, global communications. We already mentioned Ukraine. You had mentioned to me that V3 would maybe be able to replace some of these cyber cables, which, by the way, is a huge security risk for all of us because several have already been cut in the Baltic Sea. So what's the next view for Starlink, both V3 and maybe V4?
Yeah, so the V3 satellite is a gigantic, and you can look it up on the internet, is, as I said, it's 10 to 20 times more capable than V2. It's a very big satellite. In fact, it can only be launched on Starship. It's too big to be launched on any other rocket on Earth. So Starship has a 30-foot diameter cargo bay. The V3 satellites are, they're about 7 meters, so about 22, 23 feet wide. So very, very big. Like the size of a small bus, essentially. And there's a bunch of technical details about, we have much bigger phased array antennas. We've got more KU ground links. We've got more of our laser. Our satellites communicate with each other with lasers that we developed and manufacture. So it's got a lot more lasers and more advanced lasers. It's also got W band and E band. I mean, these are kind of technical details, but it's got a lot of. It's like a crazy orbiting radio station.
And doesn't a Starship do like 12 of them or 15 at once?
Well, it should be able to do 50.
50.
Yeah. Because Starship V3 is aiming to do 100 tons to orbit with full reusability. And then Starship V4, we're aiming for over 200 tons per mission. And then being able to launch every hour.
So next one, data centers in space. You've been talking about that. Other people have mentioned it, but obviously it has different technical capabilities. It's colder up there, it's less vibration. You also got to get the data back to the Earth by some method. I think you mentioned lasers in good weather and bad. And so how hard is it to do, now that you've looked at it for a while?
We don't think this is a particularly difficult thing to do. In fact, we think it's easier than our communication satellites. Like quite a bit easier than our communication satellites. The Starlink V3 communication satellites is an incredibly complex machine. The AI data center would be much simpler by comparison, because it's really just solar power plus radiator, some basic equipment for operating the satellite, and then the laser links, which would connect to the Starlink communications constellation, and then back and then to the ground. And the connection would happen no matter what the weather is, because once you connect via lasers to the Starlink communication constellation, the Starlink communicates to the ground with frequencies that are cloud penetrating. So they're in fact even roof penetrating to some degree. So you would always be able to close the link with the data centers.
Right. Talking about America, one of the big things here, we've been talking about the reindustrialization of America for a long time, bringing back advanced manufacturing. Now you're talking about building the Terafab, building chip fabs in New York. What compelled you to do that now with all the other things you're working on?
Well, we try to, so what's the limiting factor? And the limiting factor, what we see as the limiting factor is being able to make chips, both logic, memory, and packaging. I mean, it's worth noting that there's not a single high-volume computer memory fab in America right now, zero. There's one being built in Idaho by Micron, but that will not reach volume production until, I believe, 2028. And we built it in New York, but they are in, I think, 29 and 30. And this is a tiny fraction of the memory that's needed. And in fact, even if you take the best case assumptions of the memory makers and the logic makers, it is not enough to meet the demand that is anticipated. Which is why you're seeing, stocks of like Micron go to, I think, 1.2 trillion, or some quite high number. So there's just clearly a need for AI logic, memory, and packaging, AI computers essentially, that is far beyond what even the best case assumptions of the existing market do. That's why we need to do the Terafab. Yeah, it seems like essential. Otherwise, there will not be enough chips.
So I'm going to do one more on some of the stuff you're building, and then a little bit more on other issues. AI strategy. You've also took Grok inside into SpaceX. How does that fit into this platform you're building?
Yeah, so we do intend with our SpaceX AI satellites to allow people to put whatever GPU or TPU they want. So if NVIDIA GPUs can be put on it, Google TPUs can be put on it, Amazon Trainiums, or any other chips that people want to put on can be put on. We'll also offer our chips in the future, and I think we also want to offer our software, our AI software as well in the future. But it will be such that you can run anyone's AI hardware or software on the Tesla AI satellite, SpaceX AI satellites. Yeah.
So the next three are completely different. I'm going to mention each one. I'll ask you each one, but one's about his view of patriotism, his service to this country. One's about culture and bench. How do you actually build these wonderful companies? Because a lot of people here have those issues. And then kind of leadership. And I have a very specific question about that. But first, I'll start with patriotism. You've served this country. I know you're a patriot. We've spoken about it. How do you view your role of being an American patriot, helping the United States?
Yeah, I'm incredibly pro-American. And frankly, always have been. So SpaceX does do a lot of work for what used to be called the Department of Defense, the Department of War these days, I guess. We have a division called Star Shield, which provides military communications, and there's some other stuff that's kind of classified, I guess. We can't talk about that, but we are helping the Department of War and Intel, part of the government. We're a vital element of that. So yeah, I mean, I'm just super pro-America, always have been.
Thank you. Culture bench, Brett and Gwen have been with you for 15, 20 years. I know you've built a huge bench in SpaceX. How do you keep it going? What's important to you? How do you make sure you keep the best talent?
Yeah, I guess Gwen was, I think, around the 7th person to join the company, and that was 2002. So it's been like 24 years. And generally, the senior executives at the company have a very long tenure. I think Brent Johnson's been CFO for 15 years. So I think because people really believe in the mission, I think they want to stay and they want to keep building it. Like we want to make humanity a space-faring civilization. We want to, take humanity to Mars and the Moon and ultimately beyond. We want to make, it's like science fiction, make it real. So like, go to places that have never been explored before. Like make Star Trek real.
That was one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then last one, you've built multiple companies. How have you changed from maybe 20 years ago? Maybe I should ask you guys, how have you changed from like when you started to today, lessons you've learned, how you've changed both as a leader and as a person?
Well, I think I'm probably more chill than I used to be. So it's probably a little. I'm way more laid back than I used to be, which I'm still not that laid back, but but more than I used to be, for sure. One of the things I found over time, and I've mentioned this before, is that like in terms of like recruiting people to the company or having people work at the company, like their individual abilities and their intellectual capabilities matter a lot, but also it also matters if they have a good heart. Like it's not just about whether somebody has a certain IQ or whatever, but like just are they like a good person. That matters a lot. So I don't know. I guess I've learned a lot. Although I feel like I still have a lot to learn and make a lot of mistakes. But I suppose I think like maybe the future AI will say like not bad for a human,
Listen, before we thank Elon for coming, I just want to thank him. Just watching him build companies, and I can't wait to watch the next 10 or 15 years about what you accomplish and what you dream of, and getting to Mars and building new businesses and being creative. So, Elon, I want to thank you on behalf of everybody for coming here, sharing your ideas. There are brochures out there about the whole SpaceX thing. But Elon, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so that's the full conversation. And someone may ask, why in the world would you put that full conversation up here? First of all, I say this, and I don't know if people realize it, like, don't let politics or personal influence get in the way of investing, okay? Stock markets up to the right, regardless. Sometimes it's down. I shouldn't say it's up to the right. Historically, long run stocks go up to the run, up and to the right, regardless of administration. So regardless of red or blue, because investors and these long-term investors are more concerned about their money than they are concerned about who runs the country. It does play something in the short term, but also it's rare that you get a chance to hear, quote unquote, two of the most powerful men in the world sit down and have a conversation like that. So you need to sit down and take your time to listen to what they're saying. If you're going to invest inside of a company, if you're looking to invest inside SpaceX, Elon Musk just sat there and made his case to you. That's why you should. So sit at it objectively and decide if that's something you want to do or if it's something you don't want to do. Not an endorsement for SpaceX stock, one way or the other, or Tesla or any of Elon Musk companies. But there's a chance that you have to sit there and listen to it, right? Because these are all things that you should take in. Like I said, I listen to Jerome Powell's speeches at the end every FOMC meeting because I want to hear what he's saying. I want to hear how he's saying it. I want to hear. I don't want the media filtering it through to me, trying to tell me what it means. But I've learned what these things mean. So when I hear them, the signals and the filters, like what I'm looking at, what these things mean. So I don't want other people to tell me what this means. I don't want to lose my own agency in understanding things. So, we'll sit there and listen to, and this was like I said, it was part of the road show. It was like part of one of the big finale parts, maybe getting closer to the end. But you have Elon Musk and Jamie Dimon sitting there, and you don't get those two on the record out loud together very often. I'm sure they say a lot of different things behind closed doors, but you don't get those kind of things outside very often. So 10 questions with Elon Musk, that was actually, and about SpaceX. So take that information, digest it if you want to invest in it or if and find. So it's not just Elon Musk, time back to the IPOs, but all these companies go out and do this. So all these companies have interviews like this too. Like Anthropic's CEO has one like this. Sam Altman has them like this. So you can find them. And as they get closer to the IPO dates, there will be more of them. So we have a chance to actually listen to someone who owns a company or who is the CEO of a company you own. Do it. Like, sit back and listen to that. You can probably turn some of that noise and nonsense off of the TV. I don't want to say it's noise and nonsense because everyone needs to nerd out or just veg out, quote unquote. Just let your brain go free, and watch mind-numbing things. But if you really want to be the algorithm you're listening will control all your money when these people are speaking, and as well as institutions and hedge fund managers, they're listening. So like I said, everyone knows my mission is to help Main Street meet Wall Street. So you have to sit back and digest some of this stuff. Sometimes you have to sit and listen. And you all know that I'm all about actionable steps, right? So you got to think about it like this, like the 401k is the Main Street bedrock of your financial life. And yeah, guess what? We're going back to the Knicks. The Knicks and the Spurs, they're professional athletes. Elon Musk, Jamie Dimon, those some of the richest men in the world. But you're the general manager of your own retirement account, of your own household. Your 401k isn't just an account or whatever, however you may have your retirement set, whether you're investing in real estate, however you're invested, set yourself up for long-term retirement. It's your long-term team roster, right? So you're building your team. So there just some questions that you could ask yourself, just going and time back to the 6 topics. No, so building up a grit. Like, investing isn't about the biggest win. It's about the grit, the consistency of being able to stay in the game and contribute through all these bear markets, right? The Knicks are on a winning streak now. Like I said, this series isn't over with, but they had a losing streak during the season. Teams have winning streaks, teams have losing streaks. Is your 401k or whatever retirement account you have strategy built on Knicks style? Habit of consistency, consistent in your contributions, or are you gambling more a little bit high stakes growth? Is that what you're looking at? Then we look at the Wimby path, that man's an alien, a stock that is, a high growth tech stock that's holding, but it needs some support, it needs constant cash flow. Like, you heard the richest man in the world right there just speaking about how they need cash for the things that they're doing for their companies, right? So do I have a balanced roster, diversification, or is my 401k like too heavily weighted to these growth stocks and these alien stocks? Like I said, we have nearly 40% concentration in some like 8 stocks inside the S&P 500 got that high. So that's too high of concentration risk. And we have videos on concentration risk as well. Check out the channel. We got so much stuff on these things. So, and then the IPO. So IPO SpaceX, which is big, the big shiny things, the rookies, they're volatile and lack the history. And now they're in a 401k. So I don't know, maybe these definitely have to be like some spice that you're putting in there, sprinkling on the top, but they can't be the main course. Like, they just can't be the main course. Like, if you're offer shares in a hyped IPO, are you buying them because you understand the fundamentals? Like, Did you look at that video and saw something from that interview, or looked at some technicals? Because people can say what they want to say. Looked at some information. I know it's not publicly available, but there are ways to find information, and saw what you want to see, and like think that, or even his thesis that they're going to build data centers. Like a lot of what he said with Tesla was that full self-driving cars, right? And his projection for that has already passed, but Tesla stock is still volatile. But people really don't even talk about the full self-driving cars anymore. They kind of bring it up, but so do you believe in, are you investing there? Are you believe in investing in Elon Musk, or you believe in investing in, I don't know. That's for you to decide, but you need a thesis, right? So, or are you just buying the hype? Are you buying it for a trade? Are you buying for investment, right? Are you going to buy it in the morning and try to get out of it later? That's another thing. Ooh, let me speak about that with the IPO, with this, for retail investors, that retail investors usually aren't used to. Companies like Fidelity, I think one of the things Fidelity said is if you buy the stock and you sell it within 60 days, 30 days, first, I don't think you can. But if you try to sell it within 30 days or 60 days, you'll get a warning, and then maybe you won't be able to buy it into the next IPO. But it's like after 3 times, like they take your social security number, and like you might get banned from Fidelity. Like they want people not to sell these stocks, because that's part of the reason people worry about with IPOs, is that with the IPOs that people are flipping them so fast. They want people to hold them. And then with these being included into that index, the NASDAQ, so quickly, that could really throw off some retirement savings. So I did want to point that out, with the IPO and the lockup time and the Fidelity. If you buy that and you try to flip it, you're going to get hit. So be careful. The crypto flush, right? Volatility, is a risk, and it's a test of temperament. The flush that we saw in crypto, did you pants sell? Not crypto in general, but like when these things come in life, are you want to pants sell, or you want to sit down and reassess where you're at, or you just want to readjust where you have? And when the market flushes, do you have the patience to hold on to what you believe? Like I said, is it time to double down, or is it time to expand? If you thought the Spurs were going to win the series, and you still believe in the Spurs, nothing's changed in spite of the Knicks winning 2 games in San Antonio, but you still believe Spurs, like, right? And definitely I'm telling people to, like, you should have even more conviction, even though they're down 2 in the Spurs, because nothing's changed, right? Or maybe you're just oblivious to reality. I don't know. We'll see. I think that series still has a lot of games left in it. I don't know. And then the stop flush, right? So we also have to remember that it's June, so it's the middle of the year. A lot of portfolios are definitely getting back into position. There will be some rebalancing in the quarter. So you do your own personal rebalancing, just make sure and see what you're holding. And wonder if you're holding too many of these high flying stocks. Is this something that's going to make your portfolio go way up or way down? And if you're close to your retirement, you probably can't handle that volatility. Or if you're already in retirement, maybe you can't handle that volatility if these are funds that you need. So think about that. And then the outlook, right? Retirement isn't a 1-year game. So your 2026 outlook should be about whether your current strategy is going to go out in 2030, 40, 50. How far out does this tie into it, right? You set up the building blocks. You don't build a house that's only live in it for a year, right? You build a house to live forever, or to stay, I don't want to say forever, but stay for a while. And in that house, you have to do upkeep. You have to do maintenance. You have to maintain that house. But you build a house with a foundation that's built forever, right? You want it to stay forever. Maybe you add rooms, maybe you add a deck in the back, maybe, I don't know, maybe you do something different to your landscape, but the foundation of your house is the same. And then if some natural disaster comes through, a tornado or a fire is not a natural disaster, it could be, but something destroys that home, you can change some of the things when you rebuild it. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if y'all have seen Batman Dark Knight series. Bruce Wayne burns down his house. Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it. Although that movie might be about 20 years old now. That movie's definitely got some age to it. Great movie. But anyway, he burns it down, and when he builds back up, he's like, now's the time for us to make some upgrades. So you just gotta, what does your playbook look like? Like, that was, the whole thing was burnt down. Is it time to start from scratch? Was it? Well, it actually was his doing. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen that movie. You should see it. It's way too late. But so, yeah, those are just some actual things that you should think about and steps you should take. I love these Saturday sessions where I can just sit back and kind of just, take my time and share things with everyone, like what's going on, what's happening in the world, what we've been seeing, what's been going on Main Street, what's been happening with the podcast. Speaking of the podcast and the podcast, I just released the episode with Brad Olson, part 1 of it. Part 2 is coming out soon. It's just such a wide range of conversation. He's the chief content officer over there at Benzinga. It's a great conversation that we have. We're going to have some things for y'all. Because Benzinga, they're great over there as well. They love Main Street. So if you check it out, there's a link in there where you can check out some of their research. Their Benzinga Pro. It's cool stuff over there. So we've been sitting there talking about Benzinga. Let me actually share their site here for a second. So like I said, we've had the Benzinga conversation with Brad. It just came out. The Invest America accounts are out. Well, they're not out, but a lot of people been signing up for them. They go live July 4th, so they may be out depending on when you listen to this, to where you can fund them and where they will have the initial $1,000 funding. Yeah, this doesn't want to share the Benzinga site right now, but no worries. Benzinga is a really cool site. You go in there and you check it out and just see some of the great things they have with their research. Then we have the newsletter. So just released the latest edition of the newsletter. The latest edition of the newsletter we're covering actually, we're coming up on 30 years of Tupac Shakur's murder in September. It's actually about to be 30, his birthday coming up as well. He passed away, I think, 25 years old, but just the impact that he had on society and actually the economy, some of the things he tried to tell the world, as well as inside that same issue, it's called Greed is Good. We have the Gordon Gekko comparison, where we go deeper into that. So it's a really fascinating newsletter as well. Check that out if you want to. And it has some of those interviews as well. So it has an interview with Brad, has the interview on the AI bubble with Mr. David Snyder. Yeah, we're just trying to be an outlet for people. People don't want to maybe plug you in or let you plug in. So sometimes you just have to create the outlet. I've been watching a lot of financial channels, other people's channels here lately, and more power to people and the message. Like I see people spreading a lot of great things. I see people making people take action, having people take action to at least ask questions about their financial situations. But I am hearing some real fuzzy information coming out from some of these people. And I mean, some of these people with the biggest followings. I'm obviously not going to say anyone's name or anything like that because they probably wouldn't hear it anyway, but it wouldn't matter. But just be careful. Do your own research as well. Like, even if you're sitting here listening to me, I have no problem going back and looking at anything I've ever said or anything I say. Check it out. When I say something, misspeak on something, because I will, I would love for you to let me know. Like, I want this to be a community where we can speak and grow together. Let me know. But like I said, so when you're bridging this 401k or your retirement account, your IRA, or if you're already retired, you're trying to figure out what you know with Social Security, we do have the ABC Squared. You can check us out over there. That's my business. So that's a place where you can find me. And we have the website, actually have a website covering a personal website. So if you ever want to check that out, we have that. And then we have the Monarch Money. So if you want to try out Monarch Money, we have an affiliate link with that as well. So you can go check out Monarch Money and see some of the things that they have going on. Monarch Money is another cool place, another cool tool. So it helps you with your budgeting. It helps share your budgeting with different people, with your different individuals. This is a personal website that I'm about to share with you right here. So if anyone wants to check me out, if they want me to come speak to a group or anything, I'd love to come speak to your group or do a little bit closer thing, maybe moderate a panel, or if you're looking for someone to come bring content. We are trying to get this spread out to more people, right? We need more people in the world hearing these things and from different voices and different people, because it can get numbing to people to hear the same thing over and over again, if that's all you hear. Or if you only hear from the same person. You see it when you coach kids, like these kids say they won't listen to their parents as much, but then someone else can say it and they're listening to it the whole time. Parents definitely get frustrated with it, but it's a thing. Like I said, so yeah, that's the personal website right there. Some of the interviews, some of the things over on YouTube. Check it out. And then you see that? That's AI right there, because I'm right here. How can I be checking that? But some of the things on the website, and then we have just take a second here, because I guess people probably forget that I do have a business. Even though that's not really the purpose of this, the purpose of this is really to spread information to help people learn financial literacy. But sometimes people get different. People are a little bit past the level that we're speaking about, high level stuff. Like I said, I can't give you personalized financial advice. I can give you some broad information that works, but I can't tell you what works for you personally, because everyone's situation is different. But if anyone ever wants to check out, holler at me. Here's the company website right here. So the ABC Squared. Like I said, even there, we're helping Main Street meet Wall Street. We have some of the media, have some cool calculators over here. Most powerful force in the universe, Einstein, so not Einstein, it's compound interest. So people who are looking just, and then, if you ever want to book a meeting, you can do it right here from this page. And we're partnered with Altruist for security over there. So that was, a little shameless plug for the company and for myself. But if anyone wants to connect and use, the services that I have or do provide, I would be more than happy to help anyone from Main Street meets Wall Street. It would be my honor for someone to reach out and say, hey, I saw your show or saw an episode and really want to work with you now. But the main thing is that you take this and share this information with the people that you love. Like, that's what we really want to do. Share it with the people who need this information. Been going for about 2 hours now. I think we've covered a lot, Main Street. I think we've covered quite a good bit. Let me know what questions you have. Let me know what's on your mind. I love these Saturday sessions, like I said, where I can just sit back and take my time. It's not so micro focus. It's just more on questions that I've been receiving throughout. I think when you start watching this video that somehow that Chris Jenkins shot, which I'm just now getting over. I don't know why I brought that back up from today. Just now getting over from it. Just now getting over, could lead us all the way to how this stuff plays in 2026 in the market. So the outlook, like I said, with 2026 is choppy, still a little more volatility. I think we'll probably be higher by the end of the year than we are right now. But that's with the dip to come. There's some volatility to come, and that's based on historical patterns for one thing, and the fact that earnings were really strong. We saw strong earnings, but we know there's geopolitical tensions and consternation that could be coming in the upcoming days and upcoming months. There's not resolution with the war. We'll have to see what Kevin Warsh does, how he's received by the markets, how his policy actually works, and if he can even get the rest of the governors on the board to agree with him on his direction and his policy, because he is the chair and that's a powerful person, but he's only one person on board, 12 other voting members, I think 19 total governors. So you have to realize that there's a lot inside what Kevin Warsh has going on. We'll see what's happening with the NBA finals. Like, who would have thought, the Knicks would be up 2-0? I don't, maybe the betting money went that way. So yeah, I think it's just been a wide range of conversation where we covered the sports, Knicks, Spurs, IPOs, how they work, what you can look for, cryptos flush, stock market flush. And then, like I said, the 2026 outlook. If you time in the market, not timing the market, usually calluses that you'll see in midterm years, these are usually the worst years. This year is like the worst year inside the president's second term, and it's usually the worst year of presidential election. There are different reasons usually in this term, like the House and Senate may flip, like there's one party loses control versus what they already had. So there's more consternation. A president may become a lame duck, quote unquote president. So the administration may lose power in this term. But once you may see bumpy roads up until the end of the year, right to the election. But then once the election and we have some clarity, and that's assuming we have clarity from the election, right? That's assuming we have clarity from the election. Once we have clarity from the election, from the end of November until like the beginning of the year, and even some at the beginning of the year, you should expect to see the stock market return and go higher again. So that's based on just kind of how history works for the stock market in midterm elections, midterm years, and the earnings that we have projected. So listen to these calls, listen to the people you may not want to listen to, because that's just nonsense sometimes, like not for the political points or anything, but they're talking about money, why they're investing, how they're investing, or maybe you're just going to say, I think that's completely wrong, and invest on a contrarian point of view, right? Because there are ways that you can invest if you think SpaceX is going to zero or whatever. There are ways you can invest in that too. And I don't even mean short and stop. Be careful, short and stop. But there are different ways that you can invest if you think the price is going down. I appreciate everyone who sat on here with me for this deep dive. I think it's been a great one. I feel the value. Hopefully you all found some value in this. Like I said, subscribe to the Main Street Meets Wall Street podcast. Give it a 5-star review. Listen to it. Download it. Spotify, Apple, all the places you get your podcasts. We have the nice international audience going on as well. So shout out to the international audience. I'm going to have to chop this thing into 2 parts. It's so long. But thanks for everyone tuning in. Like I said, Main Street Heart meets Wall Street Smarts. We'll see you next time.